Back then, having a Google Doc dropped on you meant something of value actually happened. Somebody got exposed for being, I don't know, some sort of a weird sex pest or something, somebody committing some other sort of crime, something that's actually important for other people to know about. I don't know, maybe they just started to scam people. Behaviors that are otherwise unethical but actually had some sort of weight attached to them, something that's important for me to know. But nowadays, they basically devolved into being an overglorified way of venting out any minor inconvenience you have with another person. Something that might actually have any level of importance to devote any mental space to is now just an additional way to clout chase and drama farm. Now, I will fully admit I am actually extremely small in this space. Not only because of my direct channel size, but I just tend to not venture outside of my bubble. I'm not very well known in the space, and I really just don't like paying attention to anything that happens in it. And even then, the only time I notice something is when it breaks out of the stratosphere and into the rest of the internet. But I decided to make the one mistake of just deciding, you know what, let me check what's going on over here. I spent so much time in this space and I barely know anything about it, except for a select few people that I watch on the regular. So I'm just sitting here alright, it can't be that bad, let me check out what's going on. Now, I genuinely don't know if it's maybe just me coming off to be some kind of boomer or something, but it's insane how childish it is here. Events that are otherwise avoidable by just walking up to this other person, just being an adult for 2 seconds, just 2 seconds, walking up and just saying, hey, this thing you did made me feel uncomfortable. Could you please stop doing that? But for some damn reason, we just can't have that here. I don't understand. Everybody just has to take it and make it about them. Never any amount of conscious thought into making sure a behavior stops, and just making something that isn't that deep way bigger than it actually has to be. To a degree, I can understand why they do it because it is a directly incentivized behavior. Under normal circumstances, if you have somebody smaller that's calling out somebody larger, it almost never works out for the person that's smaller, whether or not they're in the right or wrong. By putting it in a Google Doc, you actually call them out in a more effective way because people actually have to hear out what you're saying, as opposed to just blindly believing the person that's larger. Whether or not they're in the right or wrong is that attention is brought to the other person making the call out. And the overwhelming majority of the time, the reason people drop these sorts of docs is because it works. It works. It's a highly effective way of just getting attention to yourself, because if it does work, you basically just get a career off of tearing somebody else's down. Not only is it an incentivized behavior, you also need to understand that it is completely subjective as to what's important to somebody. But once any individual is allowed to just decide what's important and what's not important, then suddenly everything becomes important. People will drop a Google Doc for any reason because they feel like theirs is the one valid reason, the one valid exception. And the second thing I've noticed that's kind of tangential to this is it's honestly just more of a minor inconvenience that I've noticed, but it's slightly more annoying to me. And once you start thinking about it in this sort of a framework, it becomes really hard to unsee. The age-old vague post. The concept of people vague posting in this community does go crazy. I understand when you're dealing with the entire overarching community of creators as a whole, vague posting is not really unique to us. My problem with vague posting is why people decide to vague post. Generally, the idea of vague posting is that you want to avoid calling out somebody directly or maybe starting some sort of drama, because like it or not, it is highly unprofessional to just directly call somebody out like that when you take the first shot. So people normally just resort to vague posting or subtweeting in order to avoid that sort of public backlash. The issue is that oftentimes they'll leave enough breadcrumbs in the post so that you can tell exactly who they're talking about if you pay enough attention, for more than 2 seconds. Which kind of defeats the purpose of why you're vague posting. Every perceivable sense points to you wanting to call them out, but for whatever reason, you just don't want to call them out. Because think about it, if it actually was just that minor of an inconvenience that they didn't feel like they needed to vent it out, why do you think they bothered to make a post about it? Again, something that can be instantly solved in under 2 seconds by just contacting the other person and saying, hi, can you stop this? In a way, it's just gaslighting because it's just trying to stir up drama without directly being the catalyst for it. Just so you can say, I'm not the one that started it. How gaslighty, you might be thinking. Why don't you tell me? Because I just did it.